This is the Converge Podcast, brought to you by the Converge Institute. Each week, brilliant minds specializing in AI, blockchain, and fintech come together to challenge the status quo and empower disruption. Sponsored by our founding council, Nakusa, BankSocial, the Texas Blockchain Council, and the Universal AI University.
Okay, welcome to the Converge Podcast. We are so excited today to have Harvey Castro with us. He is focused on AI and healthcare. He's done some TED Talks. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Harvey, welcome to the Converge Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I got to know about you guys through Michael Gordon. I came to see him speak. He and I are good friends. I literally just saw him last week at CES. And just a little background about me. I'm a board-certified emergency physician. I've been doing it for over 20 years. Big picture, I just have this passion for healthcare and now healthcare and AI, but it's always been just healthcare. When the first iPhone came out, I was coding a patient, and I told the nurse, hey, we need to start this drip. And she said, okay, doc, let me go get a textbook. Went, got the textbook, thought me through, got a calculator, started typing, and then said, okay, let me go get the medicine. And I'm looking at her thinking, every second that passes, this person's survival rate goes down, and we really need to get medicine. And yes, CPR helps, so we really need to get this medicine. And I thought, what if I just create a PDF file or just a way that I could put information on the phone, and you tap it 3 times and it gives you the dose and calculation all done in one step, basically. And that's what I did. And it was the first person in the world, and it went viral. Fast forward the year 2022, I'm in this room playing on the computer, and ChatGPT comes up, and I'm like, what is this thing? And I start researching it. And then within minutes, I thought, I see this. This is going to change the world in healthcare, and let me write a book on how to do it. And within a couple of weeks, I had a book on the market on how to use ChatGPT in healthcare back in 2022.
And what's the name of the book?
It's called ChatGPT in Healthcare. And since then, since this technology changes so quickly, I've been doing newer renditions and different angles and all these different models that are out and talking about that. Last year when the Apple Vision Pro came out, I wrote a book on how to use the Apple Vision Pro in healthcare and all the different applications and all the different ways to use it in healthcare. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I think what's intriguing to me is the ability to use a large language model as it relates to diagnostics, right? So you have symptoms, right, that the patient is presenting to you. And before you just mentioned, and I've actually had doctors do this while I was there talking about my symptoms. They go and it's this book, right? They start looking and it can even be a book online, certainly. But, you're basically reading like an encyclopedia going, okay, trying to cross-reference and this and that. And as you know, as a doctor, many symptoms can be a myriad of different diseases or conditions, or, it can be caused by something that's localized, like a food allergy, all the way to something that's genetic, and, things like fatigue, things like, being dehydrated, things, like that, sleepy or having too much energy, is it like, well, what is it? Is it a thyroid thing? Is it a blood thing? Is it? And using a large language model that has access to all of this data. And you say, okay, here are the symptoms. Here are the demographics of the patient, their age, their weight, their medical history. What do you think this might be? Is that something that is available now?
Yes and no. Healthcare, for many reasons, they go slow. There's too much at risk, meaning for each patient, if the AI mess up, hallucinations, there's too much at stake. And the developers that are working on it, most of them are not doctors. Most of them are focused on the technology.
Sure.
And so when I go out and consult and help companies and startups, I'm like, hey, make sure you bring a healthcare professional in the loop, because if you don't, you're going to be building and you don't know if that's what's going to be needed. The other thing is I say invite patients to your platform, because again, the doctor may see it a certain way, but the patient sees it another. And if you can put both and the technology, now you have something. As far as that question, My company, we create different models that are making sure that hallucinations are addressed, in the sense that we create our own RAG model. To give you a proof of concept, in theory, if I could have, there's two big textbooks in internal medicine. I'll give you an example. If I had access to those two books with the right permission, then I could literally put that in front of me as a doctor, and let's pretend you're my patient. And now my favorite phrase, it's human plus AI together will beat either one, the best human or the best AI. And let's pretend in my example, I'm have it on my computer, we're going over things, and now I have two main books of all of internal medicine. The books are like this big.
Right.
And to be able to talk to it and then get an output, and me as a doctor and say, well, that's wrong, it didn't really understand it, hallucinated. And then using my human experience, 20 years of experience, and my personality, putting it together and saying, here you go. This is what's important. I think I'm giving you 10 times more value. Another quick example, as an ER doctor at 2 a.m, I'm not at my best. I hate to admit that. As opposed to when I woke up, I'm ready to go. And so having AI to help me understand, and to your point, symptoms to you might be X, and to me, when you say that, might seem Y.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a language barrier in the sense that our definitions may be different. Quick example, if you say 10 out of 10 pain, that is your 10 out of 10 pain. But
Right.
for me, 10 out of 10 pain may be a different 10 out of 10 pain. We're saying pain, we're both saying the same numbers, but our definitions might be different. And so that gap, using LLM to help me. Another quick example, let's pretend you are from another country and you have different cultures and values and see things, and the way you say things is based on your culture and value. And I may interpret it the way I see it in the United States, and I may get a different interpretation of what you're really trying to tell me. But here's the beauty. We have AI to bridge that gap, and now we get to a level playing field. And now I can extract your symptoms and really get those symptoms into that example of the LLM where I have all those textbooks. And now I can really give you some great feedback, or putting both together.
So can AI actually understand? Well, I mean, I know that it can, but the programmers have to put that nuance in there, that cultural aspect that you talked about, because let's talk about Latin America. Even in Latin America, Spanish, right? Different countries in Latin America, and even Spanish that is spoken in Europe, is completely different. The same words that, depending on the context in which they're used, can mean something completely different. So is AI able to contextualize that sort of nuance in language?
Yes and no. To translate from English to Spanish, it does a pretty good job. But to what we're talking about, it depends. And I don't want to sound like a politician, but it depends. If the training that was put in place for that LLM represents what we're asking, then the answer is yes. Case in point, if they downloaded the internet twice and put it into LLM, more than likely that information is there. Now, the culture, the interpretation of how those words are impacted could be through a website that they downloaded and put it into the LLM. So my answer to your question would be more, I go out there advocating that every country, every city should have their own LLM. Just because we're lucky here in the United States that we have ChatGPT and a lot of the data, and it's, I don't want to say biased, but it's with the eyes of the United States. If we were having the same conversation in Europe, it may not apply. And so to bring that home, if we had our own data and our own platform and our own colloquialism that we train the data, now it's very specific to our region, and we'll get better outcomes.
Right. I think what's interesting about that is the future, of course, of AI is that we will have our own individual AIs that will live on our device, and we'll have that machine learning built into it, right? That now it's learning from probably listening to me all of the time, right? And understanding my habits and what it is that I'm doing. And I'm just kind of being a visionary in the future here. But now I'm coming to you as a doctor. and I'm like, I'm not feeling great. Could you tap into my personal AI and go, hey, why don't you tell me what Becky has been doing the last couple of weeks that might have contributed to the symptoms that she's feeling today? Because I know one time I went to the ER thinking I was having chest pain. And the ER doctor that, of course, they immediately hooked me up to, the EKG and their my blood oxygen and all of these things, right? And the doctor was looking at everything. It's all normal. And he asks me a question about, had I potentially lifted something over my head and pulled a muscle? And I was like, that's an odd question. And I sat there for a minute and I went, you know what? Yes. 10 days ago, I was on an airplane and I lifted my bag over my head and I felt a twinge right here in my sternum. And he was like, there you go. That's it. And you know what? I was like, oh my gosh, a pulled muscle, like more than just pulled. It probably was a little torn. I was interpreting as chest pain, which it was chest pain. It was in my chest, but it didn't have anything to do with my lungs or my heart or any of that. And so, the AI, the personal AI might be able to give you that kind of data. Or the last 3 times Becky has eaten corn, she's had this kind of reaction. And you're like, okay, well, I can extrapolate from that maybe what's going on.
So to your point, they are working and several companies are working on this at different levels. But to me, it sounds like a digital twin. So we take your patterns, your wearables, how long did you sleep? How long did you walk? I have my glasses in my bag, but they're AI glasses. And you put on your glasses and you turn it on. And every time you eat, it's taking a picture of what you're eating and it's recording and it tells you the calories, protein intake, and it's recording you. Me as a doctor, I want to give you a certain therapy. If I have your digital twin, I could almost give you digital medications and see how you do. And say,
oh my God,
this medicine is actually really good. Let me give her this.
To do some predictive analysis.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And so that's kind
amazing.
of stuff that I do. I work with different companies on coming up with ideas and how to merge this technology. But yes, that would be an excellent example to your point.
Wow, that is so cool. So you just went to CES. So talk a little bit about that. You mentioned before the show started that I think it was the first time you'd been there and you were asked to speak. So talk a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, first of all, amazing. It was overwhelming. I was able to get a media pass and I got there before everybody else and got some behind the scene look at different technology. That way I could test it out and check it out. Overall, just fun to see. Over 180 countries, over 140,000 people there. And seeing the different, makers of new TVs, new robots, new screens, new gadgets. It was fun from a doctor's point of view. And I call myself, I hate saying the word futurist, but AI futurist, seeing how I see these worlds collide and seeing what's out there and what's coming. It was fun. It was just so much fun for me. I'll say out of a million things that I saw, the one that really just blew me up were 2 things. One, really weird but simple. It's basically a spoon that's electronic and you hold it a certain way and it completes a circuit. I'm just kind of making it up because from the science and doctor in me. And what it does is it amplifies the salt intake that I perceive. And say if I tell you, hey, Becky, don't eat too much salt. It messes your blood pressure. I need you to chill on the salt. You can say, well, you know what? I'm going to buy this spoon. I like my salt. I'm going to crank this up to level 4 and eat. And when I eat, it plays with your perception of sodium chloride, increases the current. And then when I eat it...
taste. So you're tasting that level of salt without
the salt.
Oh my gosh.
And my mind blew up. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So I was obviously I was thinking that can't be the case. Let me try this out. And I tried it. I just did level 1. Yes, I did level 1. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because they give you placebo when it's off. eat it. You're like, it doesn't taste like anything. And then I put level 1 just to see, and I put it in. I was like, this tastes salty to me now. My mind just blew up, and the brain in me, I was like, okay, let me think of the chemical structure. Let me think this through. I can kind of figure out how they did it. And I did. And it blew me up. And again, that's a simple example of CES. But to me, that was one that I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. The second one, I see Meta, Facebook, create this product, and it's coming out in the near future. But what it is imagine a wristband, and your thoughts are going through the electricity of your nerves, down your neck, into your arm, into your hand. And then this wristband is picking up on those impulses and those signals that you're sending. And then what this other company did is very similar with, I know it's coming out. If I'm using different nerves of my hand, my ulnar, medial, or radial nerve, I'm sending signals. The band is basically interfacing to, let's just say, my TV, this computer, and then me thinking is sending a signal to the Bluetooth and controlling that other thing. Just with me thinking.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Well, I've seen some really amazing things that they've done with prosthetics. Around that.
Yes.
Yeah. Because, you're able to, because even though you might be missing appendage, right, or a limb, your brain still sends those signals to move.
Yes.
Right. That's why people have that phantom feeling, right? When they've lost their hand or their arm, they feel like they're still moving it. And so you can plug a prosthetic into that. And then just by thinking, you're able to manipulate the prosthetic just like you would your actual biological arm.
And then the other thing that came to mind, and I saw some exoskeletons. So imagine I can't really walk. And then I put this, call it a suit. And then that suit's walking for me. But then I can control it with my mind to the different parts of the suit, depending where my lesion is, where I'm like let's pretend the electricity in your body, where that's cut off. What can I use that will still control it? Really fascinating.
Oh, it is. Well, and I think that this is just me, and you can, say, yeah, I think that I agree with that, or I don't. But our devices that we walk around with all the time. You just talked about the data that our devices are gathering, right? If we wear glasses or we have a watch or even our phone, tracking our movements and listening for cues and to what we're saying. And we can agree or disagree on how all of that data is used. But eventually those things will just frankly be part of us, right? So now we start talking about neural links and some of the stuff that Elon Musk is working on with, brain transplants and things like that, I love science fiction. I'm a big Star Trek fan. And so I watch a lot of science fiction. And, just if you are watching a futuristic movie that's, let's say it's supposed to be 2099, right? And if they're still showing a device that you're holding in your hand or you're talking on, that to me is ridiculous. That is not going to be that way. There's going to be an implant in my ear so that I can hear, or it might even be in my brain or go straight into my auditory nerve or into my cochlea, right? And so now that's how I'm hearing and I'll click my fingers and I'll answer the phone and potentially even not have to verbally speak. Just have to think about what I want to say. And I'm having a conversation. I mean, this is crazy. So what do you think about that infusion of biology and technology?
Yes, when I was at CES, I spoke about spatial computing, which is basically, think of VR, AR, mixed reality kind of headsets, and how that applies to business. I do see the future where this big bulky headset is going to go down to just glasses. To your point of what you said about the earbuds, I saw 2 products. About a year ago, I saw this product that they're working on, and it looks like a huge earbud. It kind of sticks out, but it's a mini computer. It has noise cancellation, and what I thought was amazing is, say you spoke another language, in real time, it's translating in my ear what you're saying.
It's Babelfish. Did you ever watch, I'm trying to remember the name of the science fiction, but yeah, the Babelfish, and it was a science fiction novel, and you would put a fish in your ear and it would do that same thing.
And what was really fun in the demo they showed, this was not at CES, this is some video that I saw, but it was pretty impressive. They show a noisy restaurant and a couple that is in front of them, or no, they were part of a table. They're all talking. And they started having a side conversation in Spanish, and in real time it's translating. But then there's a baby right next to them just crying really loud, and it's really noisy, and it's kind of hard to hear them speak. And so then after they're translating it, he says, can you noise cancel it? Just focus on the voices of these two people. And it just goes blank everywhere around them, and you just hear them speaking, but speaking in English. And they're actually talking in Spanish. And I thought, amazing. Because if I'm in the emergency room helping someone, I could just put this in and I can translate. And then the Meta glasses does the same thing. You can have the glasses, I can have the glasses, and as I speak in my language, you hear it in your language and vice versa. And I thought, wow, here we are. The second thing I saw at CES, that's similar to the thing I was going to say earlier, it's this Bluetooth device that basically, it's to your point, it sends a signal to your brain. They are bold enough to say we're competing with Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's chip in your brain. And what I was shocked, I should have sticked around and seen the demo. They claim that they can control a whole airplane just with their thoughts. And then they're saying, okay, plane right, go up, land. And then it's giving feedback. Their earpod is telling them, okay, I just moved the plane to the right, to left. And you're just thinking these things. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is unreal.
That is crazy. That, you know what? It is so cool to me to think that people are out there thinking of these amazing things. Now, let me ask you, the people who are inventing things, we just talked a little bit about kind of that convergence of the tech-focused people, right? They're focused on writing the code to do the thing, right? To develop the product, but also working in conjunction with people like you who have the medical expertise, who have the clinical knowledge in order to be able to kind of merge those two. So when these things are being invented, the stuff you're seeing at CES, is there that merging of those two disciplines, or how are these things being invented?
Well said. This is where I feel I have somewhat of a competitive advantage. Lovingly, I call my business partner my Wozniak, and not trying to be pompous, I call myself his Steve Jobs. And together, I'm able to see the product, see the business aspect, see the doctor aspect. And then I really have studied my butt off with AI and really understand the limitations and the technology and what things can do and how. And literally, I told them, you have to come to CES. I'm going to be there speaking. Please come. And we walked through the different stands. And I'm like, okay, take exhibit A, take exhibit B. And now let's combine the two, put it in this vertical. And I know you can build this. And then we literally spend every night just talking about the different products and how we can create them. And because of that point, there don't have people that really understand that to the different verticals or can take that concept and apply it. And so I feel really, really blessed to be able to look at something and say, oh, this works in healthcare. That's easy. But you know what? This would work for an oil industry. And this is why. And so we're coming up with different products that we're building. Especially after CES, we came up with 3 products that I think do not exist and people would be just blown away.
That is so exciting. And you know what? That sounds a lot like John Wingate and I. So I'm a former credit union CEO, very tech-forward credit union person. So, worked a long, long time, almost 30 years in the financial institution space, doing all the traditional financial stuff, lending and deposits and asset liability management and investing and things like that. And he's a software developer. And so when we got together and started building products for credit unions specifically, we had that same type of relationship, right? We've got the Woz and we've got the Jobs. And although we would argue who was Jobs, actually, I'm certainly not Woz, but we would have a fight about that. Kidding. But that's a very interesting. And I think that what you just mentioned was that discernment aspect, right? Being able to look at something and understand its applicability. Have you read the book, The Six Styles of Working Genius, I think is what it's called.
No, I'm going to have to write that down.
Yes, you need to. Basically what this guy discovered was similar to personality profiles, right? You know, your Myers-Briggs and that kind of thing. But he applied it specifically around work-related activities, not just your base behavior style and who you are in the world at large, but really what brings you joy and energy at work. And the 6 are widget. It spells widget. So you've got wonder. And when you think about the product development life cycle, it goes perfectly with it. So wonder, that's that pondering. What if? Then you have I, which is invention. Now somebody needs to take that wonder and invent something in order to solve that. Then you have D, which is yes.
D, okay.
Then D is discernment. So somebody has to evaluate the invention and go, yeah, that is viable, or no, it doesn't really quite meet the criteria for being something that's plausible or possible.
Okay.
Then once you have the discernment, you have the G, which is galvanizing. Now I have to go sell it. I have to go convince people that this is a cool thing and that we need to build it, get people excited about it, get them on board. Then during the building process, which can be a little bit tedious, you need to have that enablement, that support. Somebody who comes in is making sure people have what they need in order to get the product delivered. And then finally, the T is tenacity. That's making sure that we're going from idea to delivery and that it actually crosses the finish line and gets developed into a product and put it in people's hands. And so that's the product delivery life cycle. And most people can do all of those well, but everybody has 2 that brings them joy and gives them energy. And so if we as a team can focus on most of our time, we can't spend all of our time doing everything that we love. But if we can spend most of our time in the areas that bring us joy, we're going to be more productive.
Yeah,
and if you
love
look at your partner, I bet you guys have complementary working genius styles.
Interesting. Wow. Very, very deep. Love it.
I
No, this
love
is good.
behavior styles and personalities and sociology. And
I definitely will read the book. I will get it. And then you and I definitely need to connect because I have a feeling.
yeah,
fun
absolutely.
stuff
I'm
we
on
can do.
LinkedIn. Well, so we're going to wrap up, but tell me, first of all, what exactly did you speak on? You told me at CES you were speaking about kind of
spatial
the future.
computing and business
Yes.
and how that
Oh,
would
yeah.
work. But I focus more on the healthcare side. They had someone from Siemens and the head of R&D for Honda, and they talked about digital twins as far as making cars and doing it virtually. And then the
How does
Siemens-
that work with cars? So like for like crash analysis and stuff?
all of the above. So say you and I are inventing a new Tesla and we digitally make it. And then before even spending $1 on actually producing it and making, those mud models that they have, we do it digitally. And then we run it through wind tests and crash analysis and fuel efficiency. And we do all these models. And then once we have our shape and aerodynamics down and weight and all, then we start producing the first one. But by then we've already done, 100 cars virtually. And then we come pretty close to the final, if not the final. With that example, they're doing new jet airplanes like that. What else? And then Siemens talked about factories. Instead of creating a factory from scratch, you do it digitally and all the pros and cons, the workflow and everything. And then by the time that's done, then you actually build the factory.
That is just fascinating to me. So when you're using virtual reality and using these twins, but let's say you're using a wearable device so that you can experience in virtual reality sitting in the car, for example. Are they able to translate that tactilely where I can feel the leather, I can hear the radio, I can feel the air conditioning on my face?
There's different ways of doing that. There's suits that you can put on.
Yeah.
That you can feel everything. They are working on some AI technology that you can smell. And so you would be in there and you can smell that new leather scent of the car, and they can add, that wind feel. And then the VR can really make you feel like you're there. Just the visual portion of that.
Well, and then you just talked about the taste. right? So you just talked
Mhm.
about the salt. And of course, salt is problematic in our society because of hypertension and things like that. But sugar is also a big issue, especially here in the United States, and causing all sorts of different metabolic conditions. And so it's not that far. So I think salt is a little bit easier from a chemical compound perspective, from a taste. But sugar, can we add a straw that's a sweetener to my iced tea without actually adding the sugar? So now we can do taste too.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I wanted to tell you something. Yeah, I'm going blank. But on the whole side, it's the voice. Not many people know this. This will be part of my TED Talk. Our voice is becoming more and more a predictor of our health. Simple stuff that we all heard of is like, oh yeah, you sound depressed. Literally, you sound depressed. But what if I could tell you that you're pre-diabetic based on your voice without doing any tests, anything like that? Or if you have early symptoms of Parkinson's disease, just with your voice, not that I can see anything from you walking or trembling or anything like that, just your voice. And so there's a whole paradigm now of analysis of your voice and how that could translate into our health.
How was that correlation even noticed?
It's mind-boggling. It drives me, because I've looked at the algorithm, I'm like, how does that do that? It's just amazing. Think of it this way. It's just different sample sizes, and it's picking up on micro changes that you and we don't hear it, but the AI or the computer hears that. I'm trying to think of another good example. Oh, what was the other thing? Yeah, the auditory is huge. Oh, and then the vision. This camera feed, if I wanted to, I'm not. I could put it on my computer, and anyone that I spoke to, I would know if they're pre-diabetic, not with their voice now. It's different. It's just with the vision of the video. But then what's really cool is I could tell you how old they are. I can tell you their blood pressure, other parameters of their cardiovascular fitness. And then this is on the side of unethical. I could pair this up to a emotional EQ AI. And now I know when I speak to you, if I'm trying to sell to you, if that went well, that went bad. Did you get angry? Were you upset? Did that excite you? And yes, you and I can capture some of that, but this will analyze over 65 different emotions in real time, in micro expressions. So in real
Because it's
time,
looking at my eye dilation. It's noticing my breath, my breathing rate increasing, or oh my goodness.
So all that exists.
I know. And it's like, this isn't something that's 10 years from now. It actually exists now.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This has been a fascinating conversation. Harvey, I could talk to you all day about this kind of stuff. This is really cool. Thank you so much for being on the show. I have one last question for you that I kind of try to ask everybody. This is my signature ask. What would you say to your 25-year-old self? If you just could give one piece of advice to your 25-year-old self, what would it be?
Ooh, I love that. Hindsight's 2020. And one thing looking back that has really helped me, ironically, is just trust your gut. And I know that sounds simple, because at one point I was in a very interesting situation where I was owner of a company, but my gut told me I needed to leave. And everyone around me told me, Harvey, you're crazy. You're leaving millions of dollars on the table. Do not leave. But my gut kept telling me, no, I need to go. And looking back, that was probably one of the best decisions, because it pushed me to create, all the things that I've done. And had I stayed, I probably wouldn't have grown, but there was something innately wrong with that particular company for me, that I felt that I needed to leave and sell my shares in that company. And it all boils down to just trusting your gut, trusting that inner side, that, I don't know, in the spiritual side, you may call it the Holy Spirit. Some other people may call it just that inner voice. But whatever it is, you need to learn it, trust it, and move forward in your decisions, knowing that you have that gut instinct. That's you per se. As some would say.
That's awesome. No, that's awesome. And I think that's so true because we tend to dismiss that, right? Because we're like, that's not rational. It doesn't make sense. And so our brain sometimes gets in the way. But to your point, sometimes it just keeps nagging at you, right? That subconscious thing that something is just not right. And to your point, sometimes that's really not revealed until later in hindsight, what the problem really was.
Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Harvey. Thank you.